Hello everybody and welcome to this fifth in the series of our Conversations with Gamechangers events. All of these have been focusing on different movements, different organizers in different contexts, all on different continents. Yes, this one today is the only one in Europe, actually, based in Spain, Guerrilla Translation. So they're going to talk a bit about themselves, their work, how they organize their work, and the new model of cooperative that they are developing. So we've got, yes, lots of different translations today and also in this event into different languages. So I'm going to ask some people to say this welcome in some different languages to welcome here. I think we've especially got a lot of Turkish language speakers and Spanish language speakers today. So if you want to listen in a different language than English, you need to select at the bottom of the screen. There is a globe icon and you need to click on this and select the correct language. Maybe people can say this also in other languages. So I think, sorry, you can say this in Spanish and also welcome people.
Hola, bienvenida a todo el mundo. Si queréis escuchar la conferencia en español, por favor seleccionad el idioma abajo en el icono donde sale el globo del mundo. Seleccionad español si preferís escucharlo en castellano o en español.
Thank you. And I think our tech support today, who you can also contact if you have any technical issues. Would you like to say this in Turkish?
Merhabalar herkese, hoş geldiniz arkadaşlar. Bugün etkinlik boyunca sözlü çeviri de olacak.
Thank you. And we have somebody also for Arabic, Marwa.
Okay, Joe, wait, Merhaba, wait. Arkadaşlar, etkinliği Türkçe olarak dinlemeye devam etmek isterseniz Türkçe kanalını seçmeniz gerekiyor. Aşağıda bir dünya ikonu var. Oradan kanalları değiştirebilirsiniz. Etkinliği Türkçe olarak dinleyebilirsiniz. Sözlü çeviri olacak etkinlik boyunca. İngilizce olarak dinlemek isterseniz İngilizce kanalı seçmeniz yeterli. Teşekkürler. Güzel etkinlikler dilerim.
Thank you. So Marwa in Arabic, please.
مرحبا بالجميع، مرحبا بكم في هذه الندوة. نود تذكيركم بأن الترجمة نحو اللغة العربية سوف تكون متاحة. كل ما عليكم القيام به هو النقر على الزر الخاص بالترجمة. هذا الزر ستجدونه في أسفل الشاشة. إذن عندما زر سيكون في شكل الكرة الأرضية، قوموا بالنقر عليه واختيار قناة الترجمة باللغة العربية، ونتمنى أن تستمتعوا بهذه الندوة. شكرا.
Thank you. And then Marge for French.
Bonjour et bienvenue à notre série de conversations avec des agents de changement. Alors, si vous avez besoin d'écouter ce webinaire en français, est-ce que ce serait possible d'écrire oui sur le chat? Comme ça, on vous prépare l'interprétation en français. Merci.
Thank you and welcome to the people who are still joining us. We think this is going to be the biggest one of the series so far. We have so many registrations for this event and we have people connecting from many different parts of the world. So please write in the chat and also have a look where people are joining from. Please write where you're joining from and yeah, like say hello to each other. Also during the event, if you have questions, you can write them anytime in the chat and we will have a section in the second half after the breaks where we will give your questions to Guerrilla Translation and there'll be a chance to have them answered. You can write them in different languages in the chat, so you can write your question in the language that you prefer and the translators will feed them back to us. So reminder to myself as well as to all of us to speak slowly during this event as we have a lot of simultaneous translations happening. And if there's any issues and the translators would like a break or for us to slow down, then please let us know. We're aware that it's a very tiring job. So for this reason, we have got a couple of short breaks during this event. And we'll have a video in one of the breaks also. So I'll introduce myself. I'm Jo, and I'm a worker member of the Solidarity Economy Association. We are a small cooperative based in the UK, in England, Scotland and Wales. And our aim really is to develop the alternatives which already exist all over the world to the capitalist system. So to learn from each other, to learn from the experiences, and to connect the things which already exist, because we see the solidarity economy as much, much older than capitalism, as old as humanity. You know, humans have always cooperated with each other and have always supported each other. Otherwise, we would not be here today to talk about it, right? So we see that capitalism is new, the solidarity economy is not new, but there are many new ways of organizing as well as older ways, and we want to learn from each other and share the experiences in different languages, in different contexts. So that's really the aim of this series of events. So first of all, in today's event, we're going to hear from Guerrilla Translation about their story. So I will hand over to, I think we have some different members. Maybe you want to introduce yourself. And also we have different members of SCA here. So Rory is also supporting as a host. So he'll be doing some of the questions later on. And we have some other members of SCA here as well. Does anyone else want to say hello quickly? I'm putting them on the spot now. Oh, there's so many people here, I can't even see. Maybe we're there's Rory. Great. Say hi, Rory.
Hi. Hello, everybody.
So Rory and I will be your hosts today, and then we have a different friend doing tech support. And Madge is going to be keeping an eye on the chat and saying hello, and she'll make sure that your questions in the chat get sent to us so that we'll be able to ask them later on.
Hi, everyone.
So without further ado, here's Madge.
Sorry, yeah, just wanted to say a quick hello.
Great. Yes, so let's hand over to Guerrilla Translation. So I won't do a full introduction because I believe that you're going to introduce yourselves and your work, but I think it's Sari who's going to speak first.
All right. Yeah, I'm Sari. I am a member of Guerrilla Translation and Disco.coop, which is the governance model that we developed in Guerrilla Translation. And I'm very excited to see so many interpreters here together today. I think it's the first time I see such a congregation of language workers. And yeah, I'm very happy to be able to share the way we work with you in case it's of help or inspiration or whatever. And I'm passing the mic to my colleague, Alex.
Hello, everyone. So yeah, I'm Alex. I'm in Guerrilla Translation as well. I've been a member for the last year and a half. So I'm joining from Valencia in Spain. We're in Fallas at the moment. You might hear some explosions outside. I apologize in advance. Yeah, very excited to be here. Very excited to be sharing this with so many people.
Great. So maybe you can start off, Guerrilla Translation friends, by telling us about your work. So who are you? How did you get started? What are your aims, and what's your story? How have you been developing the way that you work together?
So I'm, as I said, I'm not said actually. I'm the newest member of the cooperative, and we're going to talk about all this. We've got a presentation in a moment, but basically, Guerrilla started from the Occupy movement, and it's been going for 10 years now in various different iterations, various different members. I think we've only been officially registered as a sort of cooperative business for the last, Sari, correct me if I'm wrong, 4 years, 5 years. And yeah, I don't know if there's anything Sari wants to add.
yeah, I would only like to say that it's our 10th anniversary this year. And yeah, so stay tuned because probably so many things are coming in April, and we will organize some events and some stuff.
That's great. So if you're ready, you could start your presentation now.
All right, I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so here we are. We are Guerrilla Translation. It says Guerrilla Media Collective here, but we at some point we thought we will also like be a node under this big umbrella that would be Guerrilla Media Collective, and maybe have other nodes like Guerrilla Graphic Collective or Guerrilla Agitprop. But still, today we are just Guerrilla Translation, and we are a worker-owned cooperative that is based on feminist economics, the creation of commons, P2P practices, decolonialism, intersectional feminism, and many other things that honestly we learned from the text we were translating. We just started as a translation collective that, as Alex mentioned, during the, that in this period between 2011 and 2013, there were a lot of movements, political upheaval, with the Indignados movement, the Occupy, 15M, and all these reactions against anti-austerity reactions, asking for a more participative and representative democracy, and also like fighting against economic inequality. So this was the spirit in which Guerrilla Translation was originated. We thought it was, the original team back then, because I wasn't there and Alex wasn't there either. The original team saw this was a very unique moment to kind of amalgamate all these ideas, all this creativity that was in the air, because crisis is a killer, but it's also a muse. So crisis is very generative. And we saw that in many different parts of the world, there were like people were throwing themselves to the street and protesting, and so many interesting ideas were coming out, but language was often a barrier. And we thought that translation was a very, very important instrument to build bridges and share strategies across borders. So this is more or less the reason why Guerrilla Translation was created, and the time and location are really crucial to it. So Guerrilla Media Collective, Guerrilla Translation, is a cooperative of language professionals established in Spain, but we really operate transnationally. Alex and Lara, who is in the audience somewhere, and another member are in Spain. But for example, another 3 of us are in Berlin, and we constantly move around. So we work remotely. We work mostly digitally. Our principles and practices draw inspiration from the classic cooperative principles, the commons movement, open source communities, feminist economics, and peer-to-peer governance. We designed Guerrilla Translation. It started as a translation collective, activist collective, that was translating text that we thought were important and useful. But at some point, we also realized that we could learn so much from this text, this content that we were translating. So we kind of made a patchwork with all these ideas and designed a governance model that was coherent with our values and our principles and the content that was inspiring us so much. So it was founded in 2013, in all this atmosphere and with this spirit that I was telling you about, to provide mutual support and solidarity in a sector also that, as you most of you might know, like the translation sector has been kind of ruined, and it has very precarious conditions. And here we are today. And yeah, as Alex also mentioned, we realized like probably a cooperative was the most fitting legal model and structure for the kind of tutti frutti mix of things that we wanted to integrate. So yeah, so we can see that guerrilla translation comes from a love of sharing, and although we are scattered all around, all around the world, it was founded in Spain in the middle of a very significant moment. And our aim is to broaden the discussion, to exchange ideas and discourses among different cultural contexts at a time of global political turmoil. And yeah, we are a cooperative because it's also one of the main inspirations. It's the cooperativist principles. So we are also going to talk about that ahead on the way. So I'm going to pass the mic to Alex.
Thank you. So, yeah, so basically my job is to explain how we operate, how everything works within the cooperative, kind of on a day-to-day basis. And essentially, all of our work is divided into three, we call them income streams. And basically, every member, their pay is a combination of these three things. So the one that actually makes us money is livelihood work, which is essentially we operate agency translation services. People send us work to translate, we translate, edit, proofread, etc., and then return that work, and we are paid for the services. But as I'm sure a lot of people here know, there are a lot of translators attending. And if you've worked freelance in any capacity, the work that you do to, for example, translate a document, there is so much more work behind that. There is all the things of emailing clients, contacting people, finding the work, maintaining the work, invoicing, doing your finances, and all of that comes under the category of care work, which we are also paid for internally. And the other income stream that we have is love work, which is how we contribute to the commons. So this is work that we do pro bono. We don't charge anybody for this, but we, the translators, are paid internally for doing this work because it's part of our mission and is a very important part of what we do. I don't think that Guerrilla would be the organization that it is without doing love work. Next slide, please. So yeah, I made this graphic. I'm very proud of it to sort of visualize. So for every euro that we are paid internally, 40% of that comes from livelihood, 40% of it comes from care work, and 20% comes from love work. And a point that I would like to make about the way that we operate, because we are a cooperative and we are small and we operate on a system of, mutual support among members. These percentages are always up for discussion. They don't have to be set in stone. And if we want to change them, and we often do talk about it, we can change them. I believe we might even have changed them for a while or experimented with a new model for distributing payments. But it's all very dynamic in a lot of ways. And it's one of the things that I personally think is very special about us as an organization, is that these percentages are not fixed. We can change them, we can modify them. Next slide, Sarah. So yeah, the livelihood work that we do. So we make the money from the agency translation work. Basically, this is our source of income. So the money comes in through this and it is then redistributed. The language combinations that we offer in-house are, because we are based in Spain, our main target languages are English and Spanish. But we also have a network of external collaborators, people we trust, people we know, people we work with, to translate into other target languages. And I believe we're going to talk about that later, but principally it's English and Spanish. We also deal with French, German, so translating from French, German, Portuguese, and I think that's it in-house, but we have other people for target German, for example. We have other people for target French. For interpreting, we have other people. And they do the work under the same conditions as us. So they are kind of members, but not involved in the day-to-day organization, in a sense. And the majority of the work that we do is aligned with our values. That's not to say that we have some work that is completely against our values, but aligned with our values in the sense that a lot of it is actually very interesting. And it's something I have noticed, like that Sadi mentioned, that you actually learn a lot by translating a lot of work for social and solidarity economy organizations, a lot of, we do quite a lot of academic work and things like this, and you learn a lot from this work by translating it. You're engaging with the text, and that informs how we work. And sometimes I have had thoughts about things. We've had discussions that have been instigated by ideas presented in texts that we have translated. So yeah, one example of an organization that has netted some work for us is the Mercado Social de Madrid, which we are a member of from last year, I believe. Something like that, Sadi? Yeah, officially, yeah. And yeah, we're very much engaged with the social and solidarity economy. So next slide, Sadi. So a big part of what we do as well is what we call handcrafted translation. So we make a point of translating by hand. So we don't use CAT tools to translate. We don't just run the text through and then post-edit. We also always, as standard, have an editor for our translations. So one person in the team translates, the other person edits that translation to ensure that what we get is actually a natural sounding, good quality final result. And the quotation here is taken from an article written by another member, by Timothy. It's on our blog, on our website, if you want to read the whole thing. And yeah, it's basically that we aim to resist, not just from the perspective of quality, that's the primary reason, but we aim to resist this kind of capitalist, I don't know what we'd call it, kind of consumption of a profession whereby what is something careful, handcrafted, doing a good translation takes time, it takes energy. And we aim to preserve that rather than just using a machine to do it, getting some kind of second-rate product that we then just kind of fix a little bit and send back. We aim to do it all with care and end up with something that the result could be written by someone in their native language. That's always the objective. That it sounds like somebody writing, that you wouldn't maybe know it's translated. That's the objective. It's not always easy, but that's the idea. Next slide, Sadi. So the love work side, this is the pro bono work. So we aim to actively create a knowledge commons by doing pro bono translation work and also by documenting, open sourcing and sharing our cooperative practices. We have a wiki page, which I personally found very useful when I first joined. where anybody who wants to learn about the ins and outs, the very small details of how we work, can look there. We update it regularly. And the idea is that the whole thing is open source. It's very transparent in terms of governance. And the pro bono translation work that we do is paid for internally, and it's done to the same standard as our agency work. Okay, so these are texts that we choose because we want to translate them. We think they are interesting. We think they are relevant. Oh, thanks, Gokhan. The wiki page is in the chat. So we choose them because we think they are interesting. We think they are relevant. We think they are perhaps topical, if we can get it done quickly. And we also publish all of these on our blog. We have also had collaborations with the Spanish media outlet El Salto, which has been very fruitful. We're currently publishing via them, or publishing translations from the Green European Journal, although I believe that's not Lovework, I believe that's actually Livelihood. But we have published in various places, and it's all done under a Creative Commons license. So whatever we translate, we ensure that the authors know we are publishing it for Creative Commons purposes. We're not making any money from it. No one else could make any money from it. And it's for everybody. It's commons. Next slide, Sally. So yeah, these are a few of the topics at the top that we often translate on. Things that matter to the community. We say the community, that means us, it means the people we associate with, it means things that we think matter, essentially. So the talk commons as a topic, we've talked about that quite a lot. New economics, intersectional feminism, decolonialism, environmental restoration. There should be a big etc. at the end there, because we can do translations about lots of things. And we actually recently finished our first open call for Lovework submissions. So we opened, I don't know if anybody follows us here on social media. Essentially, we opened a call for people to send us things to translate. And it allowed people to send us things that they wish to see translated. And it allows us to broaden our horizons as well, because at the end of the day, there's only 6 of us at the moment, active members. And obviously there are a lot of other things that people can show us. And it was really interesting to see what people sent us and to be sort of given new and challenging ideas and texts to work with. It was very interesting. And we're probably going to do that again, I imagine. I hope so. So yeah. Sadi, next slide. So yeah, sometimes the Lovework thing causes some confusion because people go on our website or they hear about us and they think, oh, you do free translations. Like they think we are like a sort of, I don't know, a translation charity or something. And you do occasionally get an email worded in such a way that, would you be interested in translating this text? And they never mention anything about whether they are asking for our professional services or Lovework. And it's often a bit cagey. It's a bit sort of not very clear. So this again this is taken from an article that we have published on our blog about what Lovework is and what it is not. So the idea is that it is solidarity. It's not charity. We are doing this in a horizontal way. We are not a wealthy, enormous, successful corporation, reaching down benevolently from the heavens to select a text to be translated. We're doing this with our peers. It is subversive. I think offering it and offering something for no money changes hands. That is fundamentally subversive in the world in which we live. And often the texts themselves can be quite subversive. The ideas that they present, that's the kind of thing we want to promote. They're commons positive. So At the bottom of all of them, there is a Creative Commons license. It can be reused, reworked, remixed under those terms. We appreciate a heads up, and we always get one if that's going to happen, but that's the objective, is that it's commons, and it's translator oriented. So we are translating things that are interesting to us. The person who chooses the text and translates it, it's the same person, or the same group of people. And we get to work with texts that we find engaging and interesting. And often in love work, I find myself drawn to texts that express things in a simpler way. So I've been interested in, for example, at the moment we are translating a fanzine. And a lot of the language it's not super complicated. It's not academic. It's not difficult to understand. And it expresses ideas and a lot of very subversive ideas in a way that anybody can understand. And I think that's actually, in a way, very exciting, because a lot of the time the professional agency work is not that. The people who write in that way don't often have the funds to pay for translation. And it's very exciting that we can do that we can provide that for people. And so what it is not, I suppose, this is the other side of it. It's not a freebie. It's not something we are giving out for free. We're not, handing out love work tokens or coupons. It's not how it works. It's not a money maker. It's commons. It is inherently anti-capitalist. Nobody is making money from love work. We are paid internally, but that money comes from our internal accounting system. No one is paying us to do it. Nothing. It's also not too long. Occasionally, when we did the open call, a few people sent us things about books that looked very interesting, and we would love to have the time to select a book to translate for free, but we have to set a limit of how long it can be, generally speaking. Generally around 4,000 or 5,000 words for a piece is the upper limit. But a chapter of the book sometimes could work. But yeah, we can't do anything too long just because we need the time to make a living, unfortunately. Next slide, Sally. So the care work, this is our third income stream, and it's perhaps the most complex because it is essentially everything we do that is not translation. So we aim to reinforce care among our members through community rhythms, mutual support practices. This is an alternative to patriarchal capitalist ways of thinking, and it's the most important thing for the health of the collective of the organization. Next slide, Sally. So this is another graphic we've made. You can think of it like an iceberg. Again, anybody who has done freelance work will be aware of this, that for every editing, translation, interpreting work that you do, there is a lot of work that is invisible underneath. And in our case, this includes financial admin, invoicing, communications, social media, all of that stuff. And care work is everything under the water there, everything that is not typically seen. So Sally, next one. So yeah, one member described care work as any work that doesn't have a word count. And yeah, it includes all these things that take up your time. And we track them by time. So for example, right now, Sadi and I are on the clock. So we are internally within our accounting system, we are at work right now. And when we were making and editing these slides, we were on the clock. All of it counts as work. And it's work that often goes unpaid or unrecognized, not just professionally, but also personally. A lot of care work is invisible. And that's something we aim to work against, to fight against. Sally, next slide. Are you taking over from here, Sally?
Yeah, I'm taking over. So yeah, all these value streams, like three streams of income, it's something that comes out from feminist economics thinking. And we believe that feminist economics is actually very related to social and solidarity economy and could be even considered a branch of it. Feminist economics invite us to value things that are not valued according to the traditional market logic, like invisible work, taking care of your colleagues, mutual support, admin work, things that happen behind the curtains, right? So social solidarity economy is about reciprocity and solidarity, and is focused on the collective interest. So we think that being anti-capitalistic is closely tied to being explicitly feminist. We are rejecting values such as competition and individualism by recognizing invisible labor that is very often considered also to be extra economic and feminine, like something that doesn't really belong to economy, right? But they are the very pillars, the very columns that sustain the health of a collective, right? So if social solidarity economy is all about ethical consumption, women's initiatives, community and ethical finance, social money, democratized technology, etc., etc. This is so many. I mean, all these things are kind of integrated in the content we translate and in the way we see the future of work and the way we work together. So we have decided to value and track these invisible activities with care work, even though they are never acknowledged normally in the market. So how do we organize this? As Alex said, love work and livelihood are very similar in nature because they are both translation work. But how do we organize? How do we decide what is care work and what is not? So we kind of broke down all the activity that was happening behind the curtains in these sections, in these working circles. So members can decide to which working circles they belong and which other working circles they prefer to stay out, even though you cannot really stay completely out because we are a very tight collective. But yeah, you can draw some red lines and say, like, I suck at maths, so I just prefer not to do so much work in this sense because I'm gonna fuck up the finances of the collective, and that's pretty much okay. So we have community, the work as a working circle. Community is pretty much the heart of guerrilla translation. Everybody is in community. You cannot draw a red line and not be in the community. And in community, some of the activities that are happening all the time are mentoring, mutual support, community rhythms. We have, I think this is very important because we have these rhythms every day or monthly or bi-weekly that really, it's like the heart pumping blood into a system. So every morning we check in with each other. We say, what did we do yesterday for work? How do we feel today? And it can be very emotional. You can just be vulnerable and open and just talk about whatever. Then you can say, what is blocking you? What kind of thing is blocking you today? And what are you going to do today for your well-being? So this is just the structure we came up with, but you can, of course, just tweak it and adapt it to your own group. But we found that these community rhythms were helping us a lot to feel attuned to each other and know what your co-workers are going through. And that kind of gives you like a collective understanding of how the health of the collective is at the same time. In community, we also have like tools. Most of our tools are decentralized or open source, and group culture. Like we're gonna meet very soon. I think next week we are all gonna have an in-person retreat in Berlin. So media peers, it's all about our social media presence, networking, collaborations with allies in this sense. Like sometimes we are contacted by organizations that asks us to promote something from across our channels. Sustainability, what includes like fundraising, seeking fundraising, grants, development, philanthropy, whatever that helps the collective sustain in time. Website and tech, development and maintenance of the website, email, legal finance. This is like a very huge thing, because since we have created our own governance model and our own economic model, we need to reassess it constantly. It's an ongoing conversation, and we have a monthly rhythm for this. Every month we check the numbers, we crunch the numbers, and we try to see if things are fair and evenly distributed, and if everyone feels that their work is being acknowledged and valued. And so dating and mentoring, this is a very important thing. We are a very small collective, and every time we onboard a new member, it's a very serious thing. Like there is a lot of care and love going there. Like we have to walk through with them through all the tools and all the rhythms and all this system that is very complex, because it's actually experimental and not very typical in our capitalist system. So it takes a lot of time. We take it easy, and we call it dating and mentoring. Like we are dating someone new, and we are taking our time to know each other. And sometimes it works, and sometimes it could very well not. So includes also aptitude testing, body system mentoring. And also we consider love work, all the admin work for livelihood and love work, like keeping correspondence with authors or organizations, meeting clients, etc. So coming back to dating and mentoring, sometimes we have to speed up this process, but ideally it's a process that can take even 9 months until a person learns the ropes of guerrilla and how everything works. But often we just speed up the process, because probably we are onboarding this person because we need the skills or the language pairs that this person is able to do. So we understand that it's a lot of time, to be through a training period. During this process, the member is assigned a mentor, or sometimes even a couple of mentors, or sometimes even the whole team. And we have like meetings. We take some sessions to explore each tool and our methodologies and how things work. And we really take seriously that this person doesn't feel alienated or alone, or that this is too much information. The dating member starts having very little responsibility, and also like they are increasingly being paid as they approach the end of the dating period. And at the end of this 9-month period, it's like a pregnancy. It's like 9 months. I never thought of that before. Now that I see it written. At the end of this period, the new member can operate autonomously and carry out all the regular activities of the collective. But still, there is room for mentoring beyond the dating stage. For example, Alex has recently done some graphic design course, and he's gonna teach us how to do this. And some other people, for example, feel comfortable or are very used to subtitling, and some others are not. And we always also have like intra mentoring in the group. So before I've used the word, I think, tutti frutti mix, and I've also used the word patchwork, and now I'm going to use the word compost. But basically, all these things that Guerrilla was becoming, we realized it was a pack of practices that was probably, if we made it flexible enough, was probably going to be of help to many other groups and organizations, not necessarily co-ops. So we can say, this is how DISCO was born. DISCO is the spin-off, is this governance model, and we consider it now to be a separate organization and a separate cooperative. And it's basically a cooperative that helps other groups and co-ops to implement this model. So it's a cooperative that helps other cooperatives to do this, to operate in this way, to work in this way. So DISCO stands for Distributed Cooperative Organization, and emerged from the very practices and experiences of Guerrilla. We think that DISCO is a living organism, so there is not a strict template or blueprint to implement DISCO. It's something that each group can tweak and can modify and adapt according to their cultural context and situation, also as a legal structure, whatever their legal structure is. But it's an ongoing conversation, and it has to be revised on an ongoing basis. DISCO, as we've seen, reimagines value with care at its core. So suddenly we are giving value to some things that are not recognized as valuable in society from an economical perspective. So DISCO is the result of composting practices from all these things, from commons literature again, social and solidarity economy, intersectional feminism, decolonization, etc. With these ingredients, we want to really create an actionable kit of practices for groups that want to work in a radically different way, in a much more fairer way. So in DISCO, we have something that it's called the 7 principles, which I'm not gonna get into detail now, but we will drop some links later. So if people want to learn more about this, they can. These 7 principles are directly based and inspired on the cooperativist principles. And these 7 DISCO principles come alive when communities are interconnected in a constellation of, intercollaborating kind of. I'm explaining this very weirdly. The thing is that DISCO is primed for federation. So really what we would like to do in order to create a real economic counterpower is to have as many DISCOs as possible in an ecosystem in which small organizations can collaborate and find support in each other. So it's a bit complex and complicated to explain what DISCO is, but we can also say what DISCO is not. DISCO is not tech-centric. It serves actual humans. Since we work digitally, also DISCO proposes some uses for distributed ledger technologies, and it's also kind of a critique of DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations, which have a lot of potential to be a tool for economic resistance, but it's actually having also a lot of blind spots that prevents it from becoming so. So we don't want groups to feel that they need to be dependent on technology or to work digitally to implement DISCO. DISCO is not a legal form, so it's also, it kind of fits better in a cooperative organization, but also any kind of group could adapt it. Even we thought sometimes that even regular business can adapt blocks. Like sometimes it's difficult to implement the whole system or all the aspects of DISCO. So maybe some people are interested in adopting the community rhythms or the mutual support things, or the way we make decision making. So we want people to feel like they can implement the model to whatever extent their material realities allows them to. DISCO is not a depersonalized DAO. It's not a deterministic framework, and it's not academic bullshit or only for tech experts. It's not speculative, as in financial speculation. And yeah, it's not incomprehensible academic theory. And yeah, we're reaching the end. So if you want to know more, this is the model that we created in Guerrilla, disco.coop, and you can reach us through email, or you can check our website, and we will also share some other links later. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sari and Alex. So we will take a break now because of probably the translators are getting quite tired. So we'll take, I think, a 10-minute break, and then we'll come back and we have some questions prepared for you. And then we'll hear questions from everybody else who would like to ask a question. So we'll see you at, 7 minutes past.
So welcome back, everyone. So just to give you a sense of the next part of the talk, we're going to be asking Guerrilla Translation some questions, and after we've asked those questions, we're going to take questions from the audience. So it would be really useful if everyone has any questions that they want answered, if they could answer those questions in the chat, and we'll read them out later on. So without further ado, the first question from us is, you consider your co-op members to be shareholders. Could you tell us a bit more about how this is different from a traditional corporation?
We consider themselves to be shareholders, not in a money sense, but also in the way we make decisions together. Like the trust, the love, and the care that we invest in the collective, and also the time that you have been in, like the antiquity, we could say, gives members stakes in decision making when it comes to an important and crucial decision. But honestly, we are equipotential. We don't have more. For example, I don't consider I have more shares than Alex because I was there for any longer. I don't know if Alex has anything to add to that.
We technically have a seniority system, but it's designed as a tie-break system. And in the year and a half that I've been involved, we've not had to touch that system. I can't envisage it being used because the way we operate is there's a lot of trust between us. So in reality, there's not anyone with more of a share or less of a share. And the share has no financial value. I can't sell my share in Guerrilla Translation. It's worth nothing. We pay in a nominal amount of €1 when you become a full member. That's it. But there are no financial shares in that sense.
Okay, amazing. So then the next question is, how do you ensure better working conditions in your cooperative to the traditional translation agencies?
Well, first of all, as we also mentioned, we we come from a point in which we want to dignify the translation sector. So many people here, we are translators and people who have been translating things that didn't make much sense, like instructions for a toaster or for a washing machine, right? And actually, it's not the kind of work that anyone likes to do. It doesn't make you feel very fulfilled personally. So we are lucky enough to work with texts that mean a lot to us. And we share values, the same values with our clients. We work with activists and game changers, revolutionaries. There is a lot of work behind the curtains that we always try to speak up about. Like, as also Alex mentioned, we have some content that we have some articles that we have written ourselves, like the ethics of translation, that was written by Alex, and Timothy, another member, wrote 2 articles that are called how to treat your translator. Like, are you really aware of all the things that a translator has to do to deliver a quality work? You know, all the research, all the things, respecting the tone, getting to know the mind of the author, the accuracy, the attention to detail. And Timothy wrote another article called The Translation Industry is a Capitalist Racket, which is about raising awareness about this thing. So yeah, we are lucky to stick to our principles, and we are lucky to be able to walk the talk. And at the end of the day, that makes you feel better. Like you feel you have done a work that has social value, that is meaningful. Because many of us have had bullshit jobs. I've been working in a call center, for Apple, and you can imagine, how I was feeling at the end of the day. And yeah, also by not using computer-assisted translation like CAT tools, I think these are things that make working conditions and your feeling of belonging to a collective much, much stronger. And of course, I think above everything that I'm saying a lot of stuff, the most important thing is the mutual support, the care, and the trust and the love we have with each other. It's like you just know that you're working with humans and that they have feelings and they have processes and they are going through shit. Yeah.
Amazing. So the next question we've got is, you mentioned your model can be useful and adaptable for other activist organizations. Are there any other examples that adopt your model that you can think of?
Yeah. We are working from Disco. We are working with some cooperatives and collectives, mostly artist collectives that want to implement the model. And we have prototyped this thing called the Disco Journey, which is a kind of bi-directional learning process that we learn from the collectives, because we also want to know the challenges that they are finding at implementing this model. And we also assist them through some steps until federation, until they are able to be sustainable and they can interact with other entities, Disco entities in the network. So yeah, for example, there is a collective in London called Soda. I can maybe drop the link after this. Soda, and we have a Space of Urgency, which is also an activist collective based in the Netherlands and Berlin. And those are probably, along with Guerrilla, which is the pilot model, they are probably the most mature. Here in Berlin, we are working also with Circles, which is a social currency. And we are working with another collective called, it's kind of a space for venues, like a space for many collectives to have workshops, that it's called MOS. And there are some examples that you can probably find in the disco.coop website. We call them disco labs. So you can find some of them there. And if the list is not updated, wait a bit, because we are renewing the website and we are putting them on the list.
Brilliant. Yeah, and I think someone's sending those to the chat at the moment. So the next question is, do you work? Well, I know you said you worked with freelancers. So how do you arrange the conditions with freelancers? How does that work? Kind of when you bring kind of external people in to do work.
So normally what happens is an organization will get in touch with us. They say, we want, for example, a translation from Spanish to German. We don't have any native German or bilingual German speakers on the team. So at that point, we get in touch with our trusted guy to do that language pair in that direction. And essentially, we function in terms of the way the business is done. It's like we're an agency. And we send the work to the external collaborator. And these external people are all people we know, people we trust. It's not just whoever. It's people we have a relationship with, people we know do the work to a good standard. And we send them the text, they send it back. So we essentially take care of all the admin side of it, and they do the translation. They are, I think, all of them freelancers. So they essentially invoice us for the work. And from what we charge the client, we take a care cut of it. So if we charge, for example, 12 cents a word, or I don't know, 11, depending on the rate and the country and the language combination, a proportion of that goes to the cooperative to pay the care work side of it. So essentially the translator receives a document, they say yes or no. We give them the time frame, they do the work, they send it to us, we pass it to the client. So for them, it's a lot easier than chasing clients. It's mutually beneficial. And we do the same with interpreters a lot of the time as well, because in-house, we only have one member who regularly does interpreting work, Sylvia. She does a lot of interpreting work, but she knows a lot of people in the industry, a lot of interpreters from her time at university, her time working, and she has contacts that can help us, and they're people she knows and people she's worked with. So that's how it functions.
Amazing. So the next question we've got, so you're around 6 people in the co-op. Do you intentionally choose to be a small team, or do you think your model can be scalable to larger teams?
Actually, the idea for Disco is for small teams. It's tricky in big teams to apply this model, because if you are onboarding a lot of people, imagine the amount of care and of time that takes from the already committed members. And the idea is not to scale, but to wildly replicate, like just to create many small organizations like this that can cooperate in a constellation, in an ecosystem of solidarity and support and cross-pollination. That's how we create.
To my mind, it's like a boat, like a big organization is like an enormous boat that moves very slowly and has a enormous amount of people working in it. And it would take a long time to make a decision about where you're going to go. And then you need to move the boat, and it moves very slowly. Whereas the idea of Disco, which is the way we operate, is that you would have a fleet of lots of small boats, which is a lot more agile and a lot more, it's a lot quicker and more dynamic. So if we were to scale up Guerrilla, for example, we would probably have a separate co-op for target Spanish and a separate co-op for target English, for example. That might be one possibility, that then they are, or in regular communication, maybe sharing workspaces, messages, etc. But they would be technically distinct organizations. That's the idea, rather than making one massive organization.
Brilliant. That's really interesting. So I think what we're going to do now, you've got a short video that you've made. So we're going to share that short video, and then we're going to go to questions from the rest of the audience. So please, I know people have been kind of writing their questions in the chat, but please, everyone, keep writing those questions if you want your question answered. So I'm gonna share the video now.
Guerrilla Translation is an activist translation collective. We are an international group of professionals committed to preserving the art of translation using the cooperative model as a sustainable, dignified, and ethical working tool. We value intersectional feminism, cooperativism, solidarity economy, decolonialism, the commons, and social justice. Guerrilla Translation embodies economic resistance by creating translingual commons and working cooperatively within an otherwise exploitative translation sector. Our internal accounting system factors in the care we provide to the group and compensates it accordingly. For us, the health of the collective is not just a matter of finances. We ritualize care, open communication, and mutual support to keep ourselves thriving as a community. We operate transnationally with members scattered across different countries. Although we primarily work online, we cultivate togetherness at in-person retreats twice a year. As you can see, we have a lot of fun. Guerrilla Translation is the pilot project that created DISCO, Distributed Cooperative Organizations, a governance model that combines feminist economics, the commons, P2P practices, and cooperativism. DISCO is now a separate but closely affiliated organization which promotes its care-focused model for an infinite array of other contexts. Guerrilla Translation is
radical workplace democracy.
A privilege, something I'm proud to be a part of.
Definitely not a cult.
Cooperativism of the 21st century.
Like a reckless sailor lost in the mist.
So that's a great video. So I think what we're actually gonna take a bit of a longer break, bit more time before we go to the next questions, just to give the translation people doing translations a longer amount of time, because obviously it's really important to give people breaks. So I think we'll have another 5 minutes, and then we'll come back in 5 minutes. And please continue to ask your questions in the chat in the meantime.
Hello again, everybody. So while we're coming back from the break, I would like to remind and especially inform people who've joined more recently that this is a multilingual event. And if you haven't done so already, you need to select at the bottom of the screen, the small globe icon for different languages. There should be a message that you can see there that you can use to find that. So we have got Arabic, Turkish, Spanish, and French translations. Yes. So we have people connecting with us from really many different parts of the world today, and it's great to see you all here. So this is the section where we're going to ask your questions to Guerrilla Translation. So we have collected some of those already. please write your questions in the chat, and our team members will put them in a place where I can see them. So I'm going to read them now. So the first question is about interpreting. So Guerrilla Translation, you've talked about translating texts. I think this is a question asking, do you also do interpreting as part of your work? And what does that look like if you do?
So like I've mentioned, a lot of our interpreting is done by external collaborators. And like with other external collaborators, we essentially, the client pays us, we pay the interpreter, who they invoice us as a freelancer essentially. But we do all the admin work. And because we have, at the moment, we have a member who is very involved in interpreting. She does a lot of interpreting work. She has a lot of contacts, which makes finding people for that very easy. And we've got a lot of regular, recurring collaborators for that work. Because it's all external work, we can't do interpreting as love work. We have talked about using interpreting as love work for example, an event such as this, an event for non-profit organizations, things like that. But we don't have the capacity to do that because external collaborators don't do love work. And we wouldn't ask them to, hey, could you interpret this conference for free? So yeah, we do that through a network of external collaborators at the moment. But obviously, if we onboard new members who have skills in certain language pairs, then that is something that we would obviously provide in-house. But
yeah, it's interesting. It sounds like you're quite fluid and flexible in your approach and in your model.
That's the objective, really, is that we can say, okay, we don't have it in-house today, but there's every possibility that a month from now, a member decides that they need to move on for whatever reason. We're looking for someone new, someone contacts us, they do lots of interpreting work, and suddenly that's something we can offer in-house. But as far as a client would be concerned, if they contacted us, they would contact us and say, hey, interpreting services. We would say yes, provided it was something that we had people for. And we would do all the organization, and they would be provided with an interpreter at the time and place that they needed them. So, yeah, it's maybe a bit of faff.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's just a little bit of faff on our end, but we are, there's a cut for the cooperative taken for that organization.
So I think we've actually got a lot of translation workers like in the call today in many different parts of the world as well. And I think that a lot of the questions are reflecting that, because people are really interested in different ways of working. And that's also, as SEA, we're interested in that, and that's why we wanted to do this event. So we've got another question here. You talked about people freelancing who are not members of the cooperative. Do you do copy editing, I guess, like on their work?
So generally for in-house language pairs, so target English and target Spanish, and target Irish, actually, we have a member who translates into Irish. Bit more niche, but basically anything that we do in-house, I suppose if he wanted an editor, he would have to contact somebody for Irish. That's not happened yet. But if it's our target languages, we don't outsource it. Anything translated into English or into Spanish is done for us, and that's edited internally by us. The external work is done by the external collaborator, and I don't think have the capacity to proofread. But often we have members with knowledge of languages. So, for example, German, we don't have a German native speaker on the team, but 2 of the members, 3 of them, speak very good German. So although it's not officially kind of proofread, they can look through it and make sure that things like anything to do with a style guide is being adhered to, for example, that the organization wants to use certain words or phrases or formatting, that it's all in line with that. We're not just kind of handing over something in a language that we it's rare that it's a language no one in the co-op has any knowledge of. But yeah, maybe externally they might have their own things, but yeah, it's they're sort of overlapping with us.
Thanks. There's a question from Patricia in the chat. I would like to ask if their work for Guerrilla Translation is their only source of income, or if they do other work on the side, and how many hours a week do they normally work?
Sadie, do you want to take this one?
I can take this one partially. Yeah, so the truth is that we it depends. Like, for example, I'm not a legal co-op member right now because I'm having, for example, a salary from Disco. I'm more involved in Disco now. So I choose to step back and I still collaborate and translate and do things, but we also liberate the money according to our needs. Some other times I've been, I didn't have any other source of income, and Guerrilla I was getting a livelihood from Guerrilla, but this is also something that is very flexible and depending on the rest of the members and the needs and what is our economical situation at the moment. But yeah, the truth is that many of us have like side gigs and stuff. So just to take some money, take some livelihood from Guerrilla, but also leave enough available for the rest. And then we combine it with side gigs. It also depends on the volume of work that we have at a specific moment. Sometimes we have tons of work, and it could be viable to sustain ourselves. But yeah, you know how this translation sector works, and it fluctuates a lot. It's not really like a stable source of income all the time. So
yeah. So for example, I dedicate at the moment around 10 hours a week to the co-op, but obviously if there's a week where there is a lot of workload, I do more. And yeah, the legal relationship of different members depends on their circumstances. Obviously within the governance of the co-op, we're all equal. But for example, living in Spain, being self-employed is a nightmare. I don't know if anybody here there are a few people I saw from Spain.
I've experienced that too, yes. I would agree.
The whole system is not very friendly. And basically that means being in Spain, if you are officially external from the cooperative, invoicing as if you are a freelancer, it's difficult because you have to pay all the extra money to be self-employed. So what I actually did was I worked in the co-op for a few months, basically putting money into a pot with my name on it. And when I had built up enough, I then put myself on payroll to reduce that pot. So every month I'm kind of topping up the pot and taking out a certain amount. And the holy grail for us is that we want to be financially completely self-sufficient. Members don't need external gigs. Everybody can be on the payroll officially, making the same amount of money every month, no problems. But we have not taken out a loan to get to where we are. We don't have any significant financial backing. I think there was a grant of a bit in the early days. So we've not put anyone in debt to get to where we are. And the idea is that we'd love to reach a point where we can have everybody making a paycheck month to month indefinitely. And we are getting closer to that. But yeah, members have side gigs, members have extra things at the moment.
As for the number of hours, that was also part of the question. It's a bit like to each according to their capacities. Like we have very different realities also and very different availabilities. So we just work as many hours as it's possible and okay for us. But there is like a minimum of care work that like we have this rule that you cannot just do livelihood, or you just try to do a bit of each stream. So we sometimes talk about, and I think for some time it was even something that we experimented with. It's not necessary now with the level of trust we have among the current team, but there was a moment when we thought about setting a minimum of care work that each member had to pour in. Like, let's say 3 hours, I'm making it up, 3 hours of care work a week, or something that is kind of perfectly attainable. Because care work has to be done and it has to be distributed, and everyone has to do care work. Sometimes, for example, since the target Spanish team it's pretty, I mean, we are 4 people, 3-4 people. I don't need to take livelihood, or I don't need to do that kind of work because there is no need. But there is always need of care work, of admin, and many other things. So
yeah, there are always clients to be emailed, invoices to be sent, and all this extra stuff. But if there is, the way that the model works is if there is, for example, an imbalance, one person ends up doing a lot of care work. Every month in the finance meeting, we sort of do all the numbers and people put in the amount of work they've done, and that goes into their sort of pot that they have. So if someone 1 month has done a lot of care work, for some reason, other people have been on holiday, whatever, they're compensated for that in the internal accounting system. So even if there were to be an imbalance, we don't want an imbalance because that leads to burnout and that leads to, bad vibes as well. But if that does happen every now and then, the person doing the work is compensated for it. They are financially recognized.
And I wanted to kind of emphasize that when you're talking about care work, this is your term for basically what people might call like organizational reproduction work or something like this. It's like exactly. the kind of administration roles, the things that keep the organization running that don't necessarily bring in the cash in and of themselves, but without which you don't have an organization anymore.
Yeah, exactly. So I've got freelance work at the moment where I'm paid a certain amount for work that I do, and I'm sent texts that I edit every week, and et cetera, and if I calculate it based on the hours I spend doing the work, it works out pretty good per hour. But if I calculate the extra time I spend emailing people and, this person's sent this in late, so I have to do it really, really fast, or I need to have a call with someone to figure out how this online platform works, I'm not paid anymore for that time. I'm paid for the text I edit, and that's it. Whereas in Guerrilla, I have everything paid for. I'm on the clock right now. I'm being paid by the internal system to be in this meeting. So if we're having a long meeting, we're having big discussions about things. We've got a platform that we use for discussing large-scale organizational changes. You're sending messages to each other to figure out how to translate a particular term in a text, and you trying to nail it down. You're paid for that time, and it's recognized by the system. And I can't remember what the original question was now, but
I think you answered it. Yeah, it was about the different sources of income.
Yeah.
We have got another question from Ahmed in Cairo. Thank you for the important work you do. Could you elaborate more on the different ways you provide guidance or mentorship to either individuals or collectives seeking to do similar work, either related to the structure and organization or the approach to translation itself? I'll just put that in the chat again in case the translators need it.
Those are like 2 different situations, like the mentorship that we give to people that want to onboard Guerrilla. It's mentorship focused on learning the ropes about the practices, the system, because we work digitally. We have a huge set of tools that are not the normal kind of traditional tools. Like we have an open source, we have open source tools also to operate with things. And we assist people in with this body system also to learn the ropes of Guerrilla. Do you have questions? Do you understand how these finances work and everything? And the work we do with organizations that want to implement the DISCO model, it's a separate kind of work that we do at DISCO. with organizations that want to learn how all these compost of practices come together in a kind of implementable governance model that can serve them. And in that sense, the mentorship is kind of two-sided, because we also have to understand how DISCO better fits that organization. If they have like already the foundations of trust and care, which is, to be honest, the most rare thing to find, that a community of people trust each other enough to us to do things, and sometimes even like tracking contributions. For example, in Guerrilla, because we work remotely, we use this kind of a stopwatch application just to, for example, to know how many hours we are dedicating to answering emails or to doing this. But in DISCO is nothing like that. It's just, I mean, we also track the time like this, but we have to help communities have these conversations and come up with their own ways that work for their organization and the personalities of the members involved. Because some people even find violent to track contributions, to track care work. It's like, how can you measure this thing? How can you measure the care? We do it like this. It works for us because we trust each other and we work remotely. But Guerrilla is an example. It's not a template. It's not a blueprint. So you can use it as an inspiration, and you can look at these other communities that are implementing the DISCO model. But we don't pretend people to replicate exactly the way we do, because we know it works for us in our context, in our very specific way. And even if we were onboarding new people, we will have to maybe readjust the system again, because the community is made by each of the persons involved. So,
and if it stopped working at some point, we would change it.
Yeah.
That's the whole idea. Yeah. So yeah, I'd say that question, that if you wanted guidance on as an individual or organization, it's a question for DISCO, because that's what they do. That's the point of DISCO, is taking these principles that we kind of created in Guerrilla, I'm quite new, that were created in Guerrilla, and that's the point of DISCO now, is that they are trying to find new ways. And like Sari said, it's not one size fits all. It's needs to be adapted. And in terms of the approach to translation itself, that we've not really done much work. A few people have messaged us asking about how we do things, and we have a little chat with them over email, but we've not formally organized any seminars or anything like that. But now that it's being mentioned, it might be quite a fun thing to organize in the future. So yeah, we've not sort of tried to promote that. You know, we don't have like a standard way of saying this is what you do and this is a process, like a recipe. It's more like we operate in a certain way, and yeah, if there's some way that we can promote and develop that with other people, that would actually be really cool. So maybe that's something to think about for us. Yeah, and from DISCO, we don't really work with individuals that want to implement the model. We understand that there are researchers and people that have some interest in the model and want to learn more. But for people to implement DISCO, they need to have a community. So at least 2 or 3 people involved. We work only with groups, and it takes a lot of empathy, and it takes also a lot of getting immersed in their world, and it takes a lot of conversations and calls with this community in order to understand what they want and how they want it, so we can better assist it.
Thank you. We haven't seen any other questions. I have a lot of questions, but if there are questions we've missed, or you still have a question to ask, this is going to be your last opportunity very soon. If you want to put your hand up instead of writing it in the chat, you're welcome to, and we'll try to unmute you, or you can write it in the chat. while we're waiting for that, I would like to ask you, so you talked about some of your kind of principles and your frameworks that you use, like feminist economics, and you've talked about commons. So I think a lot of the time these are terms which in practice have a great deal of meaning, but can sound quite kind of abstract and theoretical to people. So I wondered if you could talk a bit about, for example, like what do you mean by commons? Like what does that look like and feel like in your work?
We can say that the commons, there is this description that is very abstract and probably won't solve anything, but I will start from that. The commons are things that belongs to everyone and belongs to no one. So the commons can be digital commons, can be natural things, can be knowledge. They are things that kind of need to be preserved in time and taken care of. So the following generations inherit them intact. Like it's something that you don't diminish, you don't privatize. Like the Wikipedia is a very good example of a commons. It's something where everybody can contribute and everybody can enrich and everybody can extract knowledge from without deplenishing it. So sadly, with the natural examples, it's not that easy or not that it's pretty sad actually how things get privatized. Why do I have to pay for bottled water when I have this this river or these mountains in my village, and why the natural resources don't belong to the communities that have been stewarding them for centuries or for so much time. So the idea of the commons is to understand that there is a corpus of things that we have to take care of, and that they cannot be enclosured, like privatized, and that it serves to all of us if we all take care of them. So the idea to contribute to commons is to produce cultural goods that are open access to everyone and they are public. We have a blog where, for example, we translate a lot of things about LGBTIQ rights, decoloniality. We also translated a really nice article about Öcalan and his theory and confederalism. And we just do this because we want people to know about this, and we don't get any profit. We just contribute to a knowledge corpus that people can access. So it's the idea of contributing to a garden that is ever blooming and ever growing, and we are all part of it.
Yeah, and it can be replicated by other people as well. If somebody goes, for example, to our blog, by default, all our love work is published. Love work texts are published on the blog. And if somebody wanted to take one of those texts and publish it in another context, provided they're not making money from it, they're not taking it and saying, hey, I'm going to bind this in a book and sell it for money, they're free to do that. They don't need our permission even. It's nice to know. But in any case where we're talking about commons, that's how you know if it's commons. Is anybody going to stop you from replicating it, publishing it in another place? Are you're not going to get in any trouble for doing that. Whereas if you take something that is not common, something that is private intellectual property, and publish it somewhere, even if you give it credit and say, hey, I didn't write this isn't mine, you might get into trouble. So, for example, we have to be very careful about the images that we use in publishing on the blog. If we use an image, we have to make sure it comes from somewhere, for example, Unsplash or Wikimedia Commons, basically images that have those rights where it's for everyone and you can do whatever you want with it. That's the point of the label commons. Whereas if we go on, I don't know, Shutterstock, for example, and just take an image and use it, we could get in trouble. Anyone would get in trouble. You can't just use it for that. And so that's how I think we want to contribute to this kind of body of knowledge and information and theory and things that should be freely accessible. And crossing that language barrier as well. That's kind of the point of what we do, is that we say, like, right, this text is in Spanish, it's expressing a really interesting idea. There's not really a lot of exploration of that idea in English. Let's translate it. Or vice versa, you know. Or, for example, translating stuff. I think, I'm sure Timothy would be interested in translating into Irish, for example. You know, that's something that we would actually really like to do, is to be able to translate something into minority languages, to make them easier for people who speak those as their first language to read and understand it in their first language. That would be something really cool, and we'd like to explore that a bit more as well.
Yeah, and it's also part of keeping those languages alive, isn't it? It's a form of like language and cultural resistance then.
Yeah, definitely.
To share the information in those languages.
100%.
And that's really kind of what we're trying to do with this series of events as well. So it's a great bridge into sort of rounding off with some announcements and kind of how to stay in touch. So first of all, we want to do a massive thanks to the translators who've done incredible work today. We really also want to talk about the earthquakes, the devastating earthquakes that have hit like Turkey, Syria, Kurdistan, and really affected predominantly like minority regions, Kurdish and Arabic minority regions, but affected a huge number of people. I think that like at least 45,000 confirmed dead, but the estimates are saying, you know, it will be over 100,000. Huge numbers of people are displaced, without tents even, you know. Yeah, very, very huge and very shocking issue. So this is why we also postponed this event for 1 month, because it seemed like, you know, at the time when translation workers are going to be, you know, quite busy, and this is not going to end soon. Also, we recognize that this is something that will continue for a long time. So there are two announcements related to this. One is that there is this initiative, our friend's putting some links in the chat now, about Translate Disaster. Do you want to say something about that?
Yeah, so we started this project to translate the earthquake, specifically like the websites, news, videos, anything about the earthquake, but more generally the disasters, because like we are having lots of disasters in the world. And so the other project that we initiated is to translate the Guerrilla Translation governance model. So they have a really good wiki page. They have lots of stuff over there. So we put them on a website. I shared a link. So if you would like to contribute, you can contribute for the translation. We started with the Turkish, and we are planning to translate it in more regional language. If you would like to support Translate Disaster, you can check our websites and apply to be a volunteer. Or if you know any organization, any news, any articles to be translated, you can use the requests translation form. So here you can ask for translation, and we will put them on our website. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, we're really excited about this initiative. Like, it's really important, and we feel it's very relevant to today's event in particular. So the other thing is that Solidarity Economy Association really recommend donating to Havasor. I think that Rory has got a link to a current crowdfunder that we can post in the chat. So yeah, there's lots of different ways of donating, obviously, now popping up, and we really recommend this one because we see that they're really able to reach people in hard to reach places. They're really connected to people on the ground. And then what was that other announcements? Yes. So we're going to share some announcements about how to keep in touch with us, basically. This was the 5th of 5 kind of already promoted events. We are expecting to do a 6th one. So please keep in touch with us through our social media accounts in order to stay in touch about that. We are still releasing the videos of the previous events. So the first one with English subtitles with Cooperation Jackson is now online. I believe that there is a link to that going in the chat. It's on Vimeo. We will be adding other languages as subtitles. We've discovered that there is a wealth of different technical issues that you can have with such a project. So we'll be also talking to Guerrilla Translation about this. Meanwhile, we're preparing the second one with the women's economy in North and East Syria, Aborigine and Rojava. And then we will be publishing the one with Grassroots Liberation in Kenya. And with Zamin Prapti Sangharsh Committee, this was the last one with the friends in Punjab, landless Dalit farmers. And then with this one as well, and then we'll have another one coming up. Stay tuned. It's exciting, but yes, not confirmed yet. And then I know that our Spanish translators have to go actually, so I think we'll end here, but we're going to end with another song, another video. So the reason we've chosen this one is because it comes from struggle, it comes from the refugee movement, in fact, and I think from possibly from 2015 is the first time I noticed this song, but it might be more historic than that, I'm not sure, and it contains a lot of different languages and a lot of different elements of struggle, so it's got images from different protests and hunger strikes and things like this that have taken place. It's being shared. Great. Okay. So yeah, thanks again to everybody. Thanks for coming. Thanks especially to the translators. Thank you to Guerrilla Translation. Do you have any last words?
It's been great, and yeah, thank you for everything, and thank you to all the interpreters, and we will love to know how to collaborate more and as love work and with SSA, SCA, and let's keep in touch. And if everyone here wants to know more or wants to work together, let's talk.